Truth. It's elusive, alright. It's surely not in any magazine. And I bet you can see it even on your TV screen. But you might find something else there when the clock hits midnight on a rainy day. Hello, I am Locke and this is Maya, the channel where I review stuff in 2 minutes and then explain why in probably less than 20. Today's review is of none other than the cult classic Persona 4, its upgraded version of course, Golden. The game recently launched on Steam for the first time ever out of its original platform, this. And it met amazing success, selling more than 500,000 units on the Steam re-release, much more than the original 345,000 it sold on Vita. But is it still worth playing 11 years after its original release? Well, yes, and let me explain why. None of us ever saw it coming, but Persona is a mainstream series nowadays. Back on the PS2 days, it was very niche and hard to get into for me and some others, but Persona 5 and puberty hit me just right. After playing Persona 5, I was amazed at how this psychological dark adventure hit me in the right spots, and I was eager to go back and play the older ones. So well, I got a Vita and some emulators. And no, it's not piracy, those games are in their graves listening to black metal right now, and emulation is the only way to play most of them. And I experienced Persona. Well, modern Persona. Haven't touched much of P2 yet, but I hear it has Hitler, and kicking his ass would probably earn me some points with my ancestors. Back to Persona 4. P4 is a comprehensible step back for players used to the Persona 5 gameplay. P5 takes many pages from mainline Shin Megami Tensei games with its guns and demo negotiations, and in that way Persona 4 is much more bare bones and treats things very differently. You can't even put that on its age though, since there were a lot of Shin Megami Tensei and other Atlus games that existed near the time of the original P4 launch. But this doesn't really take out of it. It's just a point that you might feel different about it, coming with that P5 mindset into it. Talking a bit more about design points, this game surely looks dated. The UI is filled with wavy colorful lines and the main color is yellow. It does suit the TV aesthetics of the game, but now it looks kinda kitsch, especially compared with the jazzy red, white and black looks of Persona 5. Character animation are non-existent, except for Teddy. And in general, you need to get the emotional depth through voice acting and character portrait variations, and on that part the game really shines. It's surely an evolution in comparison with Persona 3, and it rivals P5 very well. All the character designs in the game are amazing, they are full of personality and have that Atlus design going on it. The effects of the game are true to the era, albeit a little upgraded. Everything looks and feels like a high-resolution PlayStation 2 game, but that's not a deal breaker for me. What almost was is the dungeon design. The dungeons are generated procedurally. Every time you enter a floor or go back to an earlier one, they change. That is ingenious and gives the game much more replayability value than your common JRPG, but it pays a price by having some pretty uninspiring dungeon designs. They don't have many props or interesting elements and seem like random mazes. That does contrast heavily with Inaba, the city where the game happens. A place full of life to the brink, filled with details that are very cohesive to the overall story of the game. And talking about story, this game has an amazing one. But the key word here is over-exposition for sure. There is a lot of text in this game. A lot. Persona is a mix of JRPG and visual novel, a genre of games that are made purely of text and sometimes tentacles. Visual novels are very popular in Japan, for example, where they love things like this. And well, Persona 4 takes you literally 3 to 4 hours of conversation and events to even begin the first dungeon. But that is what makes it magical. If they threw you into this without a second thought, you will have no reason to care, but by knowing those characters through the visual novel system, you feel the urge to help them with their problems. In Persona 4, you play Yu Narukami, whatever the hell you wanna call him. Fighting genius, heartbreaker, and amazing dancer. His parents need to go away for work during a year and send you to live with your emotional distant detective uncle, Ryotaro Dojima, and your little cousin Nanako. From this trip on, the character gets dragged through the mystery of Inaba and the Midnight Channel, living a double life in the Shadow World and his day-to-day activities in school, work, and friends. The game balances these stages really well. Whenever you start to feel tired that everything is quiet, something terrible happens, and you need to go into a new dungeon. This balanced gameplay loop is something that I find very rare in JRPGs nowadays. They expect you to grind like a madman to kill God at the end of the game, but give you nothing to relax between the grind. Persona balances everything with its visual novel mechanics, and they are great to make you understand those characters. Every main character has a social link meter that contains 10 special scenes that go deep into those characters' motives and personalities. And in the main characters' cases, it also helps them evolve as fighters. Every level helps their persona in some way, and after level 10 they evolve to new forms. But what you really get out of that is exposition. You get to understand why Naoto is so hard on himself, why Chie feels so weak that she has to train all the time, and why Rise keeps sexually harassing you. It is a little less edgy than its neighbors though. In Persona 5, characters take their masks out by ripping their flesh in the process to awaken their personas. In Persona 3 they, well, you know what they do there. And here they face their shadows, get to grips with their issues and accept themselves as who they really are. The strong-willed people who can accept and overcome their weaknesses awaken their personas. And these characters are pretty three-dimensional, especially thinking about the time this game came out. It deals with some very strong issues without losing its lightness or humor. It's not a game for the whole family, but at least you're not shooting yourself in the head 15 times per fight. The JRPG part of Persona 4 is a mix of Final Fantasy with light demonic Pokemon. Your party members have one fixed persona on them, but the main character can collect many through the roulette system after successful battles. The battle system looks very basic at first, but it's actually pretty interesting. In Persona and other Atlus RPGs like Devil Survivor and Shin Megami Tensei, every character and demon have elemental weaknesses and strengths. By finding their weaknesses, you can receive +1 turns and exploit the combat in a very fast and satisfying manner, by doing what they call all-out attacks, with all your characters at once and dealing special damage. And some character combos like Chie and Yukiko might even trigger extra damage scenes after all-outs. This elemental system is the basis of all the combat on the game. Enemies, of course, can also exploit it and get +1s against your party, and that's where your character abilities come into motion. The other party members only get their own personas and abilities, but you is what they call a wild card. By fusing or earning new persona cards after battles, you can alter your stats, weaknesses, and strengths. Everything comes from your equipped persona, so altering them is important to make the game harder for enemies and consequently easier for you. About music and sound in general, this series is known for its stellar soundtrack and voice actors. But for me, Persona 4 Golden has the best music in the whole series. As much as I love Burn My Dread and Blooming Villain from P3 and 5, Persona 4 as a whole has some of the best songs I've ever experienced in a game. For someone who's really into Japanese music, of course. More Western-oriented people may find that P5 jazzy tunes are much easier to the ear. Somewhere, it will probably be Nevermore, the ending theme from this game. Now about voice actors, the game has stellar voice acting in general. All characters feel so much alive and active, and you can really believe when they are angry, sad, or agitated. Well, in Japanese of course. When I listen to the English voice actors, I start to really miss shooting myself in the head.
Wow, impressive.
You suck.
She sure does. But well, that is all a matter of taste. 45-year-old guys trying to mimic teenager voices and Japanese voice work really makes my ears bleed. So yeah, this is the first thing you should do after watching the intro, turning it to Japanese. The intro is skippable, but I was never able to because it's so damn good. Every theme in this game is amazing, I really can't praise it enough. It's really hard to play a generic JRPG now that I have experienced this. Persona 4 Golden adds a lot to the original game. It has extra social links, new Persona forms for all your party members, a whole new section of the game in winter with a full one-day dungeon with one of the worst gimmicks I ever saw in an RPG dungeon, and the epilogue that takes place after all the spin-off games. What spin-offs, you ask? Oh yeah, during the 7-year gap between Persona 4 and 5, Atlus was not being quiet, building their way to mainstream games. Persona 4 has a ton of spin-offs, and most of them are fucking canon. Even the dancing games. So, after Persona 4 Winter, but before the final boss, you have Persona 4 Arena and Arena Ultimax, fighting games by the makers of Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, Arc System Works. They play their part in making sure you know Yu Narukami means fucking business. They are pretty legit tournament fighters with big rosters. Unfortunately, it's very hard to play them nowadays because they are only for the PlayStation 3. And after the final boss, you have Dancing All Night, that has an equally amazing main theme and a pretty bullshit story where they fight by dancing. But it started the Persona dancing rhythm games genre, which had a P3 and P5 spin-off of it. Bottom line is, Persona 4 Golden and the whole Persona 4 series are amazing games. Some people dislike them for not having much of this or that, but not having edgy moments doesn't kill the game. It actually makes it stronger, and I firmly believe everyone should give it a chance, especially now that it's not a PlayStation joke exclusive. Overall, I rate Persona 4 Golden a 10 out of 10. It is a product of its era, but I can't really review it with a modern mindset. I have to make sure that I see it as it was when it launched in 2009. And for the time, I think it was one of the most visually stunning JRPGs out there. And for a PlayStation 2 title, Persona 4 was an amazing game. And it made the Vita a console worth buying for a lot of people, even me. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to press the like button down here somewhere and subscribe. I'll see you next time.